It's a Thursday, and wherever you are, it is the top of the hour. We are coming on the air with a grilling on Capitol Hill, really a grilling. The CEO of Norfolk Southern says he is committed to doing what's right by the people of East Palestine. But there is a lot of questions right now around what the heck that really means, what he is and what he's not committing to in public today. Plus, we are on the ground in California, where folks there are bracing for serious floods as the rain rolls in and the snow starts to melt. The concern now, potential landslides across the state. Also, late breaking, a new hearing in the manslaughter charges against Alec Baldwin after that shooting on the Rust movie set, what we're learning from court just moments ago. Then, new details tonight from the FDA. Listen up. Updating the standards for women who get screened for breast cancer. Why supporters say this could help save lives. And in the original, we are looking at new bills in Republican-led states that target gender-affirming care for minors. The impact on the trans community coming up later in the show. Good day, I'm Tom Costello in for Hallie, and right now, a new push for accountability in Ohio as this NTSB special investigation ramps up. And on Capitol Hill, the CEO of Norfolk Southern getting very sharp questions from senators demanding to know how his company will help people whose lives have been upended by the toxic train derailment last month. In the next couple of hours, people in East Palestine will get to ask questions about anything from air quality to water safety. In attendance, workers from these 6 federal agencies, including, as you see, the EPA and the company. And now Alan Shaw, the CEO, says Norfolk Southern will stick around as long as it takes, repeating this one line in particular.
I am determined to make this right. Norfolk Southern will clean the site safely, thoroughly, and with urgency. You have my personal commitment.
Now, you will hear that a few times today, but Shaw's timing really not ideal because another one of Norfolk Southern's trains went off the tracks today, derailed. This time it happened in White Plains, Alabama. You see the pictures right there. We just got these in the last few minutes. Here's the good news. The emergency there apparently is really very minor. Nobody hurt, and there was no hazmat spill, but a lot of trains off the tracks. It is part of a huge issue for the company right now. Now, you see the chart right here. Take a look at this. Norfolk Southern's accident rate has grown by 80% over the last decade. That's them right there. Well ahead of the industry average here. And Norfolk Southern has had 20 hazmat spills over 8 years. Now, Ohio's 2 senators, Sherwood Brown and J.D. Vance, a Democrat and a Republican, who both testified today, have come up with a bipartisan proposal designed to address all of these safety concerns, like requiring 2-person crews, boosting inspections and fines, and adding more sensors to the tracks and under the tracks. But the people there have concerns as well, like can families who now own homes in this town, can they eventually plan to sell for what they bought at, or might they have to sell while they're underwater? Senator Ed Markey challenged Alan Shaw, the CEO, on that.
Will you compensate that family for that loss?
Okay. Senator, I'm committed to do what's right.
That is the right thing to do.
He said that over and over again, committed to do what's right, but he wouldn't be more specific. NBC's Jesse Kirsch is in Cleveland. Jesse, you've spent a lot of time in East Palestine talking with the people there, hearing their concerns like property value, like health care. What's on their minds, and are they going to be satisfied with what they did or didn't hear today?
Yeah, and Tom, I think that exchange we just saw from Senator Markey is pretty emblematic of some of the same back and forth we've seen between community members and representatives from Norfolk Southern. In recent days, we were at a town hall there. There were representatives from the EPA, from the state, and as well from Norfolk Southern. And that was one of the chief questions that people had that night as well. Will the company reimburse people for the perceived financial losses on their properties because of concern over the values dropping over real or even just perceived health threat? Because remember, this is a community that feels that not just that they're concerned about their health and skeptical about what they're hearing from the government and the company, they're also feeling like there might be a stigma around this community and a perception that people aren't going to want to come spend time there anymore. Here's more of what we heard today.
Does that include paying for their health care needs? All of their health care needs?
Senator, we're going to do what's right for the citizens of
What's right is to cover their health care needs. Will you do that?
Everything is on the table, sir.
Something else that a resident I've spoken with before, I was texting with him earlier, and Tom, this resident said another thing that Bernie Sanders pointed out about Mr. Shaw that resonated was Bernie Sanders apparently claiming that Mr. Shaw seemed like a politician. So it seems like hollow words to some community members tonight.
Yeah, I heard that comment as well. And he said the same thing over and over again. We're going to do what's right, but they could not pin him down. Meanwhile, there are now 18 lawsuits filed against in class action lawsuits against Norfolk Southern. But we're now hearing from a federal judge that they could actually speed up the process a bit. What's going on?
Yeah, so according to our affiliate WFMJ out of Youngstown, federal judges asked the attorneys who are filing those lawsuits to consolidate them. Obviously, we know that there are dozens, if not hundreds of people potentially out there. It could be as many as thousands because we know that there are thousands of people in this community. But, you know, there's certainly a large number of people that appear to be considering their legal options. So this would obviously factor into that. And I can tell you, Tom, we've spoken with people who were signed on for lawsuits. We've spoken with other people who are considering which lawsuit to be joining. So there's a lot of legal activity around this, and can imagine that's probably not going away anytime soon.
And there was some promising news about the chemicals on the ground, right, from this new test out of Indiana?
Yeah, so the governor of Indiana, this is just another reminder, Tom, that this is not just an issue for Ohio. It's not just an issue for Pennsylvania. There have been concerns in Michigan, in Texas, in Indiana about the waste material that has been moved out of this derailment site as well. And the governor of Indiana said that some initial testing that the state had done on the waste material that was being brought there did not show a concerning level of dioxins, which could be potentially harmful materials. So that is sort of relieving news for that community, but also just underscores, again, this is an issue that is concerning people across the country. And as you mentioned, we've had another derailment of a Norfolk Southern train in Alabama this time. This is not just an issue for one part of the country.
Yep, that's right. NBC's Jesse Kirsch. Thank you, Jesse. Tonight, California is bracing for dangerous flooding as rain and heavy winds are starting to hammer the central and the northern parts of the state. 16 million people are under flood watches. That includes the entire Bay Area. Crews are cleaning out drains, and they're also filling sandbags. Several counties are already starting to tell folks there to evacuate. On top of the floods, there are concerns of landslides, power outages, and even damage to buildings. And in a separate storm, the Midwest, getting a mix of snow and rain, making for a messy situation going into the weekend. We have meteorologist Bill Karen standing by to give us the forecast. But first, let's go to Jake Ward, our resident San Franciscan, and he's on the ground in Northern California. All right, Jake, the state still recovering from that pretty severe storm that left behind a lot of snow. So how are people getting ready now for the next blow?
Well, Tom, we are definitely seeing the beginnings of this storm as it moves into the area. Rain began a couple of hours ago, and now the wind is picking up. And really the biggest concern, the most immediate concern, is at higher elevations. At the highest elevations, we're, of course, going to see a lot more snow in areas that I can tell you from personal experience have had absolutely enough. Me and my family were almost stuck in the Sierra Nevadas the last time the snow hit. I know that those people are not looking forward to this next round of it. We already know from places like Yosemite that structures are being collapsed by the sheer weight of that snow. And then, of course, you're also going to see tremendous snow melt because the unseasonably cold temperatures had caused snow to basically collect at these lower elevations. That snow is about to melt, run off into rivers, and that's going to create a threat of flooding and mudslides. And so it's at those high elevations that we're really watching things at this hour.
Well, it's just compounding problem after problem. I got to ask you the question that everybody out here on the East Coast is asking, and I don't want to blindside you, but is this all this moisture, is it going to help the drought situation in California?
Well, it does help, of course. The difficulty is that California is not used to these enormous atmospheric rivers like we've had. I mean, let me just show you one of the reasons that this is such a big deal. I mean, where I'm standing in Santa Cruz, California, is one of these Northern California cities that is essentially the drain of a grand bathtub. California becomes a big bathtub when it drops this much moisture on the state, and it all drains to cities like this. This river mouth that I'm standing at will wind up being the place where all of that snow melt comes out. And let me show you on the beach here just why that's such a big deal. That incredible amount of water carries huge power with it and huge weight. The wood that you see collected here does not come from the ocean. That came from inland. These are, 1,000-pound pieces of wood carried out of the river. And so the thing is, you're right to ask this thing, can we catch this water? And we have certainly caught what we can. We know that big industrial-sized dams, huge water basins here are basically full at this point, but we do not have the capacity to hang on to much more than that. And so all of this water is going to come out of this river mouth, do this incredible amount of circulation in this particular bay and up and down the Bay Area. It's the power of it and the fact that we are not built to catch it in these, 7-year megastorm kind of increments like we're going to have to. We're not built for that currently, Tom.
All right, Jake, thank you. And also thanks to your photographer. Thanks, guys. I know you're getting wet out there. Appreciate it. Let's bring in meteorologist Bill Cairns. All right, Bill, first let's keep up on California. What should people be expecting out there?
Yeah, the worst is tonight, Tom, and then tomorrow. And here's what just happened in the last hour. We have the Weather Prediction Center predicts where the worst weather is going to be throughout the whole country. And they give us flood guidance. And they say, well, you're going to marginal risk, slight risk, or a moderate risk, or a high risk. A high risk are pretty rare. And they just upgraded 2 different sections here of Central California into high-risk categories. So why is that important? Well, obviously, with the threat of mudslides and landslides, sinkholes. But on high-risk days, they only make up like 4% of the calendar days, but that's about 40% of our fatalities from flooding, and 83% of our flood damage comes on these high-risk days. So there's a really good chance we are going to have significant flooding problems on hopefully not deaths, but definitely damage in the areas from the Central Sierra, where we're going to see the runoff down towards Fresno, and just south of where Jake was here, from Monterey southwards down through the San Luis Mountains. That's the area of greatest concern. And you can see on the radar, the green's light rain, the yellow is heavy rain. It has just moved in and taken over all of Central California here. Snow only at the highest of elevations. And the rainfall totals just in the next 24 to 48 hours, we're going to pick up 2 to 3 inches on the coast in the cities. Some of the cities along the Central Sierra, about 3 to 4 inches. And Tom, the mountains, of course, will get more than the cities. So water is a huge issue. Way too much, too quickly.
All right, let's go to the next one now. This big storm that's sweeping through the Midwest.
Yeah, this storm in the Midwest is going to dump some pretty significant snow. It looks like it's going to be the worst of it tonight around areas like Milwaukee and right along areas of southern Wisconsin. Tomorrow morning, Detroit, the morning commute's not going to be fun. It's only going to be about 3 to 5 inches of snow, but it's going to be difficult. And then during the day tomorrow, we'll watch that snow from Cleveland to Erie heading through central Pennsylvania, and a little bit Friday night. New York City's not going to get much at all, but northern Jersey and the Hudson Valley will get a little bit. But you see the highest snowfall totals here in Wisconsin. And Tom, giving everyone a heads up in New England, all of our long-range computer models are hinting at a chance for our first nor'easter, maybe even a blizzard, come Tuesday of next week. We'll talk more about that once we get past these storms.
All right, Bill, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Other news now, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is still in the hospital suffering from what we now know was a concussion after a fall at a D.C. hotel. The Republican Minority Leader tripped at an event for the Senate Leadership Fund, which was held at the Waldorf Astoria here in Washington. A spokesperson for Leader McConnell says he will remain in the hospital for a few days of observation and treatment. NBC's Sahil Kapoor joins me now. All right, Sahil, what else do we know about how this happened and how serious is this concussion? Because he is 80, 81?
He's 81, Tom, and there are limited details we know so far. We know that Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell had a concussion at an event last night at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, which is barely a mile from Capitol Hill. It was an event hosted by the Senate Leadership Fund, which is a prominent Republican super PAC that McConnell supports. Now, these are big players in Senate elections. Let's put up on the screen here what they did last cycle in the 2022 elections. They spent and raised about $290 million, and they are expected to be big players again in the fight to try to take back the Senate for Republicans in 2024. As you just mentioned, Senator McConnell's office mentioned that he had a concussion. He's expected to remain in the hospital for a few days of observation and treatment, unquote.
Well, this is a rough sport, politics, and with McConnell gone, Republicans are without the captain of their team, right? So how does that affect their ability to get business done in the Senate?
Well, on the Senate floor, there have been several absences. It's not just McConnell. He adds himself to a list of multiple senators who have been out for different reasons. Let's put it on the television here. You see McConnell, of course, he had a fall. There is Senator Dianne Feinstein, who's been at home recovering from shingles. That has forced Democrats to delay some committee meetings, particularly in Judiciary, where they have a one-seat majority. Senator John Fetterman checked himself into the hospital recently to get treatment for clinical depression. Now, on the Senate floor, as one Republican I spoke to earlier, they're not exactly breaking a sweat. There's not a whole lot of activity happening, and one senator or even a few senators being absent are not having a huge impact on the floor. The big question is more in committees. Democrats have a one-seat majority. A little absence here, a little absence there can have a major impact on business going forward. Tom.
Hey, Sahil, can I ask you, what do we know about Senator Fetterman? How is he doing? I know he's still at Walter Reed, right?
That's correct. He is still at Walter Reed. His chief of staff, Adam Jentelson, tweeted some photos of him talking to Fetterman at Walter Reed, looking at some paper, going over business, particularly that train derailment in East Palestine, which is right on the border to his home state of Pennsylvania. His office insists that he will be back soon, and even as he is at Walter Reed getting treatment for clinical depression, he continues to be engaged in the work of serving his constituents, his office says.
All right. Well, we wish all three of them well. Sahil, thank you very much. All right, here's a story you will not believe. Turn up the volume. The Mexican drug cartel, believed to be responsible for kidnapping 4 Americans, appears now to be apologizing. 2 of those Americans are now dead. The Gulf Cartel reveals in a letter obtained by the Associated Press that it turned over its own cartel members who are responsible. It says the cartel respects, in its words, the life, tranquility, and integrity of the innocent. Yeah, digest that. A senior law enforcement official tells NBC News U.S. authorities believe that this apology letter is actually real. NBC's Morgan Chesky is in Brownsville, Texas. Morgan, you cannot make this stuff up. What else more do we know about the letter and what happens next?
Yeah, Tom, an absolutely stunning twist here in this kidnapping case that began almost a week ago now, that little by little has just taken one turn after another. You mentioned that U.S. senior law enforcement official believes that this letter is real, as are the photos of men sitting on Mexican pavement with their hands tied, the majority of them shirtless. Important to note, what we're still waiting to verify here, Tom, is if these individuals have actually been taken into custody by Mexican authorities, and also if they are believed to be true suspects of this crime that left 2 Americans dead and had all 4 in Mexico detained for the better part of 4 days before they were found in a wooden shack about 15 miles outside the city of Matamoros. And I do want to read another portion of that letter, Tom, if we can, just sharing the words allegedly of the Gulf Cartel, saying in part that they condemned the events of Friday, in which, unfortunately, an innocent working mother died. 4 American citizens were kidnapped, of which 2 died. And that is why they believe they needed to hand over those individuals. And as you can see, they're asking the society to remain calm because they're committed to ensuring that these errors caused by indiscipline aren't repeated. And they end this letter, Tom, by saying the guilty parties will pay regardless of who they are. Very ominous ending there. Of course, this investigation still very much ongoing.
All right. Well, listen, I used to work on the border also in El Paso, and I read that as a layperson. I read that as, oh, my goodness, we screwed up, and now the Americans may come for us, or we're about to get a hammer on our head from the Mexican military. How do you read that, Morgan?
Well, we have calls out to federal investigators. Of course, this letter alone, these photos, will not stop what has essentially risen the profile of cartel violence over the last several days. We do know that there was a high-level delegation of Americans in Mexico to discuss the ongoing fentanyl crisis. And we do believe that, of course, this kidnapping was at least part of that conversation. As for any continued efforts against the cartels, that will definitely be front and center going forward. We know that there have been a number of lawmakers suggesting to potentially label them terrorist organizations or even enable the military to go into Mexico. But as of right now, that remains just only discussions and not actual policy changes. Tom?
Yeah, interesting story. Morgan, thank you for staying on it. In the last couple of hours, we are learning that a man who had a violent outburst on a United flight this last week, that he will remain in jail pending a competency hearing. There's the suspect, 32-year-old Francisco Torres, facing life in prison if convicted. The video shows him allegedly trying to stab a flight attendant with a broken spoon. He broke it in the lavatory as part of an incoherent rant after he tried to open an exit door mid-flight. And you're looking at the moment that other passengers jumped him and restrained him. He's being charged with interfering with a flight crew while using a dangerous weapon, and that is a federal felony. Emily Aketa joins me now. In court today, Emily, it sounds like he tried to speak out against the advice of his attorney. What did he say?
So we had a producer inside that courtroom, Adam Reese, and that's right. Francisco Torres actually interjected at one point, saying that he wanted to speak, at which point the judge advised him not to. He said, quote, "Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit told me to speak," before eventually settling back into his chair. At the detention hearing this afternoon, we learned more about his past. The prosecutor describing a history of making threats to his mom. She also said that Torres punched a guard in the face this week while being held in a detention center in Rhode Island. If convicted, as you mentioned, Torres could face life in prison after he allegedly struck a flight attendant this week with a broken metal spoon. The terrifying altercation, you're watching it play out on camera there. Prosecutors also pointed out that Torres can also be heard on the video making threats to other passengers. Next is a competency hearing. We're told that he will also be undergoing a mental health evaluation, Tom.
And Emily, we also have some of the radio traffic with the pilot, the captain of that United flight, declaring an in-flight emergency, I understand.
Yeah, that's right. The air traffic control audio really captures the chaos in real time. You can hear the pilot declaring the plane an emergency aircraft. Take a listen here.
Person is detained, attempted opening of external door, emergency door. That person was subdued and is being detained right now. However, not going quietly.
Well, thankfully, fast-acting passengers jumping to action, helping restrain Torres through the remainder of the flight. Tom, I know this is something that you have covered extensively. This is just the latest in a string of mid-air scares. More than 2,300 reports of unruly passengers in 2022. That led to more than 800 investigations, and that is a notable improvement from the year before during the mask mandates. But still, it's something like more than 5 times what we saw some pre-pandemic levels. Tom.
And that means there are about 6 a day, 6 of these cases a day. Now, the vast majority are not violent, but 6 unruly passengers a day. It's a real problem. Emily, thank you very much. All right, just before we came on the air, defense lawyers in the Rust shooting said the gun at the center of the case was destroyed by the state. Now, that revelation is happening at a virtual status hearing today. Actor Alec Baldwin also supposed to show up virtually as well, but his appearance was waived. Lawyers for Baldwin and Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer on set, worked with prosecutors today to lay out the next steps in the case that authorities are making against them. It's been more than a month since New Mexico authorities charged both Baldwin, the producer of the movie, and Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the movie's armorer, with involuntary manslaughter. That, of course, for allegedly the deadly shooting of the cinematographer, Miss Hutchins, on set back in 2021, Helena Hutchins. Baldwin and Gutierrez-Reed have both pleaded not guilty to the charges. NBC's Maura Barrett joins me now. She's on the story. Maura, talk to me more about what we heard today in this hearing and what happens next.
Well, Tom, there are so many steps leading up to a trial date, so many pre-trial hearings that are necessary. And today it seemed like it was just going to set a few dates moving forward to see if the case would move to trial. But we did learn that pretty shocking revelation, that firearm, the gun that Alec Baldwin was allegedly holding at the center of this entire case, had been destroyed by the state. This is something that both Baldwin's lawyers and presumably the jury would want to see at a trial. And the Baldwin's lawyer did say, we'll want to see what's left of that gun. So presumably there is some issues with the gun, considering all the testing that they've done on the firearm. We've also learned on the state's end that they've expanded their list of witnesses to include more than 46 people potentially. So a long list of potential witnesses. This all as there's a lot of consideration about whether this will even go to trial. There have been some issues with the prosecution. They had to walk back one of the charges that they had put against both Alec Baldwin and Hannah Gutierrez-Reed about a gun enhancement charge. So right now, both people in question facing involuntary manslaughter cases. But in terms of next steps and a timeline, we're going to be looking at March 27th as a deadline for a motion for disqualification. And then April 17th is the deadline for the state to then identify which witnesses they plan to call. And this all leads up to a May 3rd start for preliminary hearing. Now, both the lawyers and the judge said that this expects to be about 2 weeks long, because that's when they're going to introduce evidence for the court to consider whether or not this is something that makes sense to go to trial. So starting in early May, that's when we'll see more details from both sides of the prosecution and the defense about whether or not this is something that can hold up in a trial. But obviously a lot of attention on this case and all the step-by-step process, Tom.
You got to wonder if they can go forward if they've destroyed the gun. I mean, I'm just stunned that the state destroyed the most important piece of evidence.
And it's unknown whether this was intentional or if it's something that they did too much testing on, or what exactly happened here. Obviously, I'm not a legal expert, Tom, but that does seem like a key piece of evidence that the jury and everyone in the courtroom would want to see.
Yeah, you got to wonder. All right, Maura, thank you very much. Coming up on News Now, we are following breaking news out of Germany, where we are learning about a deadly shooting in a church. Plus, the super popular cooler brand Yeti is recalling nearly 2 million products. What we're going to tell you about what you have to know if you have one, and that's coming up in the 5 Things. Stay with us. Bottom of the hour, we're back, and we have some very important news here. The FDA is setting some brand new standards for mammograms, asking providers to tell women who have dense breast tissue that their cancer screenings, that they may be hard to read, and suggest that they talk to their doctors about getting even more tests. Dense breast tissue is tied to a higher risk of breast cancer. The FDA says about half of women over 40 have denser breasts. Supporters of this new move from the FDA say these new standards will help save lives. NBC News correspondent and breast cancer survivor Kristen Dahlgren joins me now. I say that, Kristen, because, first of all, we celebrate that, and you have some credibility on this issue. It matters deeply to you. 38 states already require providers to tell women if they have dense breasts. So what does this announcement then from the FDA mean for women on a practical level?
Right. And so let me say first off the bat, what we're talking about is exactly what happened to me. In April of 2019, I had a clean mammogram. I had no idea that I had dense breasts and that it would make that mammogram harder to read. 5 months later, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And so right now, yes, 38 states have some type of patchwork notification. Sometimes it's to the woman, sometimes it's to their doctor. In my case, after my cancer diagnosis, I read about it in that mammogram report, but I didn't really know what it meant. And so that's what we're talking about. Women now, according to the FDA, and this goes into effect in the next 18 months, are going to get notified whether or not they have dense breasts. They'll also be recommended that they talk to their doctor, who then may suggest additional screening, because it's very hard to see cancers when you have dense breasts, which is a radiological term, just so people understand. It's not abnormal. It just means that some breasts have more fibrous material and glands than other breasts, Tom.
And what do people need to know then about the risks associated with this?
Right. And so if you have dense breasts, not only is it harder to see a cancer on a mammogram, but it also makes you 4 times more likely to have breast cancer. So you have an elevated risk, and then you do have a harder time of seeing it. It's been compared to finding a snowball in a snowstorm. So, in a more fatty breast, you might see a spot of cancer. It comes up as white. But in a dense breast, almost everything looks white. And so it's really hard to see where the cancers are. And that's why in many cases, doctors will recommend an additional screening, an ultrasound or an MRI. Congress will also soon be considering an act that would make insurance pay for all of the additional screening, because that's another part of it. So now we do have where people are going to be notified of whether they have dense breasts, but whether or not they're able to pay for additional screenings will be the next step in this process.
And we ask because we love you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I feel really good. I do have to have another surgery coming up. So, it is a constant battle and it's been a long road. I wish that I had caught it earlier. When cancers are caught early, Tom, 99% of breast cancers are treatable. It makes it much harder when you get into, like my case is stage 2, and then of course, even further along. And so it's so important that women have these facts and get diagnosed early.
Kristen, thank you. Kristen Dahlgren, always a class act. You can catch more of Kristen's reporting on NBC Nightly News tonight with Lester Holt, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, and across the country in your time zone. All right, let's get you over now to the 5 things that our team thinks you should probably know about tonight. Number 1, a Palestinian gunman opened fire on a crowded street in Tel Aviv tonight. 3 people were wounded, one of them critically. The shooting comes hours after an Israeli military raid killed 3 Palestinian militants in the occupied West Bank. Now, these incidents are the latest in a string, a long wave of Israeli-Palestinian fighting. Number 2, stocks today took a tumble as investors brace for tomorrow's jobs report. The S&P dropping by 1.8%. There you go. And the Nasdaq down 2%. The Dow fell below its 200-day moving average for the first time since early November. Number 3, General Motors today said it is offering to buy out a majority of its employees to leave the company. GM says it'll cost them about $1.5 billion, and it comes as GM is working to cut down costs. Number 4, the popular cooler company Yeti is recalling nearly 2 million soft coolers and gear cases. The magnets in the lining that close the products, they could fall off. And if somebody swallows them, especially a child, it could cause serious injury or death. So customers are being told to stop using these recalled products immediately and to contact the company for a refund or a replacement. Number 5, all right, red alert, a shortage of cookies. Girl Scouts USA says it's frustrated with one of its main baking partners, Little Brownie Bakers, because of a shortage of cookies. Power outages in the Kentucky factory reportedly stopped production for a time after the company had already reported production delays back in January. So the owner of the Little Brownie Bakers, Ferrero, says its bakery teams have been working overtime to make sure that orders get filled. I should hope so. When we come back, President Biden revealing his new budget plan, why it could be a sneak peek at his 2024 re-election campaign. So stay with us. "37 minutes after the hour, we are back with some breaking news out of Germany. Police say several people are dead, many more are injured after a shooting in a church in the northern city of Hamburg. NBC's Megan Fitzgerald is following all of this. Megan, what do we know?
Well, Tom, what we know right now is that this happened at around 9 o'clock local time. Hamburg police are saying that at this point, as you mentioned, we know several people are dead. Several others have been critically injured. We know that a gunman or more, they say, walked into this church and opened fire. Now, we're just getting this video coming into our newsroom showing the moments that police officers, this heavy police presence around this church, walking into the church, guns drawn. And then we're also seeing the moments that they are taking people outside. So obviously, it looks like there was plenty of people inside of this church because we can see them walking outside, some of them with their hands on top of their head. But there's still a lot that we don't know here. Police have not yet confirmed how many people were killed, how many people are injured, and whether or not they have detained that suspect or those multiple suspects. So, of course, this is still a very developing story that we will be monitoring closely, and we'll be back with you as soon as we get more information, Tom.
All right, Megan, thank you. Megan Fitzgerald in London. Today, Russia launched its biggest aerial attack on Ukraine in weeks. The head of Ukraine's armed forces says Russia launched dozens of missiles and drones, many hitting critical infrastructure and residential buildings, and striking while people were sleeping. This video shows the devastation in Lviv. At least 5 people were killed there. And in Kyiv, explosions hurt several people, and the attack left about 40% of residents there without heat. NBC's Aaron McLaughlin reports from Dnipro.
Hey there, Tom. We awoke in the capital this morning to the sound of a massive explosion echoing throughout the streets of the capital. Ukrainian authorities say they believe that may have been a hypersonic missile. Video captured of the moment the missile shot down from the sky, striking a nuclear plant, which deprived some 40% of the Ukrainian capital of heat for the day. A Ukrainian city official telling me they are still working to restore the heating situation for the city, although noting that it was around 55 degrees Fahrenheit in Kyiv today, which he says is less of a concern given that the frigid temperatures that the capital can sometimes see this time of year. Nevertheless, concerning that Russia would choose this moment in the conflict to launch not 1 but 6 hypersonic missiles towards Ukraine. Big question here as to why. It is unclear they chose this moment to do so. It is worth noting that Kyiv, in particular, the capital, has strengthened its air defense systems in the last year, though the air defense systems are incapable to carry out these kinds of attacks because from a military standpoint, they seem to be pretty ineffective. Tom.
Aaron McLaughlin, thank you very much. President Biden was out on the road pushing his new budget proposal this afternoon. The plan has a large focus on American families, going after the wealthy and big corporations to pay for some big increases in government spending. Now, the president argues this is a long time coming for some of the country's biggest earners.
No billionaire should be paying a lower tax than somebody working as a school teacher or a firefighter or any of you in this room. So my plan is to make sure the corporations begin to pay their fair share.
All right, well, here's just a piece of the wish list, anyway, from the president. It's Congress' call on how much he gets and what's he going to spend it on. And a lot of these things are simply a non-starter for Republicans. So NBC's Hallie joins me now. All right, let's go through this a little bit. He wants what he is likely to end up with here. How much is he going to end up with? And it seems to me that some of this may be wishful thinking as he goes for a 2024 presidential run.
That's exactly right, Tom. It really is not lost on the president or this administration how low the chances are of this budget proposal passing in this newly divided Congress, especially when you remember that some of the proposals that have been re-upped in this budget failed even when Democrats controlled not just the White House, but also both chambers of Congress before the midterm elections. So this is definitely more of a wish list, more of a blueprint for what we expect to hear from the president when he announces this expected re-election run. But for now, it puts the onus on Republicans. It puts the ball in Republicans' court to start negotiations that OMB Director Shalonda Young told my colleague Carol Lee are possible, that this is the start of a dialogue where bipartisan agreement can be made on several things in this budget, on things like raising funding, boosting funding for more police officers in communities, for more border security, more border agents, also for more money for rail and transportation, aviation safety even. So right now, this is putting the ball in Republicans' court. That is technically not how House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is seeing this. He, shortly after this budget was unveiled, put out a statement calling it in part, quote, a reckless proposal, doubling down on the same far-left spending policies that have led to record inflation and our current debt crisis. So again, the White House giving Republicans something to work with and off of while we wait for their budget proposal that in just the last few minutes, Speaker McCarthy has said because President Biden's proposal was delayed, now Republicans' proposal is going to be delayed, Tom.
All right, and also the president is calling for trillions of dollars in new spending with a big debt limit fight already looming over all of this. So how does that complicate things?
Well, it raises the stakes in a couple ways. The main way is because the means by which the president plans to pay for these things are things that Republicans have been staunchly opposed to. Things like raising taxes on the extremely wealthy and big corporations in this country. So you add that opposition to demands that the Republicans have already suggested they'd make in their budget proposal. And right now it looks like these two parties are on complete opposite ends of the spectrum of agreement here. Despite all of that, the president said during the speech today he is willing to sit down again with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and come to some sort of agreement as soon as possible. Listen here.
I want to make it clear, I'm ready to meet with the Speaker anytime, tomorrow, if he has his budget. Lay it down, tell me what you want to do, I'll show you what I want to do, see what we can agree on, and we don't agree on, let's see what we vote on.
That debt limit deadline coming very quickly, as soon as June. So if Democrats don't agree to some spending cuts or Republicans don't agree to raise the debt limit, we could be in a major crisis where the U.S. will, for the first time, default on its debts, Tom.
NBC's Hallie Rafa, thank you very much. We have some more breaking news at this hour. Lawyers for Alec Murdaugh are appealing his double murder conviction. We're just now getting our hands on this notice of appeal in the last few minutes. The bottom line, it was submitted by his defense attorney, Dick Harpootlian. It's summed up pretty simply, no specifics on why they're filing this appeal. But in the last week, his lawyers told our Craig Melvin that they had questions about the judge's decision to allow evidence about the nearly 100 financial charges against Murdaugh as possible motive. Now, Murdaugh is currently at a holding facility in Columbia, South Carolina, as he waits to find out where he will serve out a double life sentence for murdering his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul, back in June of 2021. Coming up, a number of Republican states are trying to ban transgender health care for young kids. We've got more on that in tonight's original. Plus, imagine if your traffic stop ended up on TikTok. The lawsuit against a Dallas police officer coming up in the local. Stay with us. We want to bring you now tonight's original in-depth reporting on a topic we've been keeping an eye on around here. In just the last 24 hours, lawmakers in Iowa passed a ban on gender-affirming care for minors, sending the measure over to the Republican governor's desk. And in Arkansas, legislators there just passed their own bill making it easier to sue doctors who provide this treatment to people under the age of 18. Now, the latest states to move toward restricting hormone treatment and other surgeries for transgender youth are also on the board there. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard has the story.
Republicans this year pushing in states across the country to restrict transgender minors' rights to access hormone treatment and surgeries as part of their transition process.
So-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous.
They talk about these very young kids getting gender-affirming care.
Right-wing voices calling for an end to transgender care on the GOP's biggest stages.
Transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely.
When 17-year-old Elizabeth Knight was close to starting the process of accessing hormone treatment last year, Arkansas banned the care for minors like her.
They're taking away some of the only medication or routes that we have to really feel at home in our bodies.
They were the first state to do so. As a nearby Tennessee resident, Knight says she knew her politically conservative state would follow.
I actually decided to wait until I was 18, where there wouldn't be as much legal pushback. I didn't want to have to start hormone treatment and then immediately have to stop it again because of the bill.
And she was right. Last week, Tennessee's governor signed a ban on treatment for minors like her.
They don't understand that what they're doing is actually causing so much more harm than what they think is causing more good.
Veronica Takanaka is a junior in high school in Utah. She was prescribed hormone blockers a few months before the state's governor signed a ban of their own. She is grandfathered in, but access to gender-affirming care for other Utah youths now out of reach.
I feel just really hurt and saddened for this future generation.
Demonstrations across the country. As now 8 states have implemented similar bans, and more than 20 state legislatures are debating whether to follow suit. This week, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced a federal ban of such transition-related care.
Before they're old enough to make adult decisions. This is an important bill that Congress must pass.
Conservative political leaders citing the need to safeguard children against what they say are hasty decisions that may impact life in later years.
But you cannot undo those procedures.
Some backers of these type of laws lift up stories of individuals who say that they have opted to detransition. How prevalent is this, and how viable of an argument?
It's extraordinarily rare. Regret rates for any type of gender-affirming care at any age are between 1% to 2%, which is far, far lower than for most medical interventions.
Former President Donald Trump is also calling for the punishment of doctors who perform gender-affirming care for minors.
It's invaded our schools, our colleges, and our workplaces.
And former Vice President Mike Pence campaigning against an Iowa school district allowing students to identify by the gender of their choice without their parents' consent.
We are all human beings, and we all deserve to have that right to be ourselves and embrace our identity.
Let's bring in Vaughn Hilliard, who has been reporting on this. Vaughn, these bills against transgender health care are picking up really across the country, right? So where does this go next, and how is this going to affect real people?
And Tommy, you've really seen Republicans around the country on a national and state level really pick up this issue and try to galvanize a conservative base of support around it. And now the issue here is that, you know, oftentimes this gets framed in the realm of being a culture war, but this is not an instance of culture. Trans individuals are individuals who have forever existed in history. And yet when we're talking about, you know, the type of care that we're providing, Dr. Baker laid it out here, when there are concerns about young people and their lives going forward into adulthood, giving them the support, the affirmation, and the type of health care necessary at a young age provides them the opportunities as adults to be the best positioned as healthy humans. And, you know, Elizabeth was quick to say, this is a long process. These are not decisions that are made in haste. These are individuals who, trans individuals, have seek care over a long process, going to psychologists and then getting diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and then to the point of determining whether to go forward with the hormone treatment or not, and then surgery at another point. These are very difficult, sensitive situations here that trans youth go through every day, whether Republicans choose to acknowledge it or not.
Vaughn Hilliard, thank you very much. Good reporting. NBC News covers hundreds of stories each day, and because you could not possibly read, watch, or listen to all of them, our bureau teams have done it for you. So this is what they tell us is going down in their regions. It's a segment we call The Local. From our Northeast Bureau, we are learning a third victim now has died after a crowd surge at a rap concert in Rochester, New York over the weekend. Investigators think concert goers panicked when they thought they heard gunfire, then rushed towards the exits. The police chief there is revoking the concert venue's license after the owner did not show up to a meeting with the police and other city reps. From our Southern Bureau, a driver is suing a Dallas sheriff's deputy for live streaming a traffic stop on TikTok. The sheriff's office is also listed as a defendant in the suit. The lawsuit alleges private information was shared online without consent. And also from our Northeast Bureau, a 19-year-old LaSalle University student is accused of stealing more than $500,000 from a jewelry store she worked at, scamming her employer, and allegedly using that money to buy things like a Tesla and things from Louis Vuitton and to take a trip to Hawaii. She went big. She's expected to be arraigned tomorrow. Still to come, a SpaceX crew is going to have to wait a little longer before coming home. We're going to tell you why coming up. Back now, and the SpaceX Crew 5 astronauts are inching closer and closer to coming home after more than 5 months docked to the space station. The crew was supposed to be back on Earth sometime today, but the weather got in the way of that plan. NBC News is learning that SpaceX has 7 possible landing sites in mind. All of them are around the coast of Florida, either in the Gulf of Mexico or off the coast in the Atlantic. The Crew 5's mission is the 5th operated through NASA's commercial program. It conducted over 200 experiments and ventured out on 6 spacewalks. Former astronaut and senior advisor to the Intrepid Museum, Mike Massimino, joins me now. You know, Mike, this mission was significant and I found fascinating. I interviewed the crew, before they went up, and we have Americans and this Russian cosmonaut on board, as well as a Japanese astronaut. And I asked them, and by the way, Crew 6, the one that just left, they have the same situation, right? I asked them, how do you deal with the fact that we've got this war in Ukraine and the worst tension in the United States and Russia in decades? And their answer seemed to be, we don't go there because our lives depend on each other. Is this just a huge elephant in the room when you're all on the station together?
Well, Tom, thanks for having me. I think what they told you is what been my experience as well, is that there are certain things you just don't talk about. Your lives are dependent on each other. You rely on each other, and it's not just your lives in case of an emergency, but it's also the operation of the space station and the experiments. And I think what it shows is there are some things that are kind of that kind of go beyond the conflicts that we have here. They need to cooperate. The relationships between the United States and Russia and our other partners have remained in place as far as the space program goes. So, yeah, these are things usually we don't get into those discussions with our colleagues from these other countries when it comes to the conflict that's going on in particular.
Yeah, you know, I still find it fascinating, and I've talked to the NASA people all the time. Just talked to one of them yesterday who said, my head still spins on this, that we have maintained this relationship despite the fact that we are really in a very heated de facto war in Ukraine right now. And does it surprise you that we've maintained this relationship despite all the rhetoric back and forth?
Not really, Tom. I mean, I look at it now, you know, it's been a while since I've been with NASA. It's 9 years ago that I left NASA. So I look back at it and I kind of have the same reaction you might have or someone might have from the outside. Like, well, how could this not be a problem? But when I put myself back in the situation when I was an astronaut still, an active astronaut with NASA, the mission really was paramount, and you really relied on each other. And you could not afford to have something like this get in the way of the mission. As long as we're continuing that relationship, we're continuing with the space station program, you have to find a way to get along. And it goes beyond any of these other. Now, the conflict is, of course, horrific. But when it comes to doing the mission, you really need to focus on that.
I'm wondering what I would miss most. I'm thinking pizza and those Girl Scout cookies that we can't get our hands on. I'd be missing dramatically. Mike, I'm out of time. Thanks, buddy.
All right,
Mike Massimino, we appreciate it. All right. That's a wrap for us at this hour. We're going to have much more here tomorrow. Same time, same place. And the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.